What's up, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I just wanted to do a quick recap of what Kail's been saying on her podcast, the one that she shares with V. This is a recap of two different episodes, last week's episode and this week's as well. So she made a huge claim about her baby daddy and ex-boyfriend, Jo Rivera, and she's also updated us about the state of her relationship with her sister. If you recall, so far on this season of Teen Mom 2, they're estranged, they've fallen out. And so she's given us a quick update about that, and it's as disappointing as you would imagine. So let's quickly start off with what went down on last week's episode of the podcast. Kail let us know a little bit about her history with her mother growing up. She says that her mother signed over custody of her 3 months after she got pregnant. She claims that moving into Jo's house with his family wasn't as shocking as you would imagine for like your average teenager, because according to her, she was living alone in her mother's apartment for the most part anyway, because her mother was constantly going out with different men, dating them, etc., and staying over at their place. And so that's why she already had that level of independence and separation from her mom. So it wasn't such a bizarre idea for her to move into like another family's house, you know, a boyfriend's house, let's say. As for how it was that she met Jo, I don't know if she mentioned this in 16 and Pregnant. I'm racking my brain trying to recall, but I don't recall her saying this. So it was nice to hear a little bit of the backstory there. According to Kail, she and Jo met at McDonald's when she was working there, and she said, you got to keep this secret, you guys, Jo's parents also met at McDonald's when they were both working there as well. Now, whether or not it was the same like franchise location of McDonald's, I don't know. It'd be quite cute though if it was, right? But she said that that is how their love story goes. It's a second generation McDonald's love story in Jo's family. I think it's so cute, you guys. I really do. Now here comes the massive bomb that Kail dropped about Jo. You guys, I don't know if Jo's going to be happy that she put this out there, but Kail mentioned in last week's episode of Baby Mamas No Dramas that Jo was her drug dealer for quite a while. Yes, you guys, she put that out there. Listen, one thing that like really kind of like shook me about this was how Kail treated V when she first came into the picture, knowing that Kail herself was allegedly buying drugs from Jo. Remember, she was like, oh, V is a hood rat. There she is, you know, doing drugs with a mask. Meanwhile, this whole time, she was doing drugs herself. I think we all knew that she was doing drugs. Jo had mentioned it, like when she was calling V a hood rat and like, you know, saying she didn't want her around Isaac because she was doing drugs. Jo claimed that Kail was doing smoking weed while she was pregnant with Isaac. So yeah, like I always had that kind of like a knowledge that she was doing that, but like, man, to hear her actually confirm that she was like a regular or something like that in these streets is just so funny. It really highlights her hypocrisy to me. In fact, Kail has quite an interesting history here. She mentioned getting kicked out of another school in the 9th grade, but I don't know what for. You know, this very well could have been because of her mother not really being there for her, maybe not making sure that she was getting her assignments done, like helping her with her homework, you know, missing school because her mom wasn't helping her catch the bus on time. I don't know. I don't want to attribute it 100% to Kail, but she did say that, you know, when she showed up at this new school pregnant, she was already like the new girl. So she felt like very, you know, self-conscious about that on top of the pregnancy. She says that the last time her mom called her, we already saw her mom call her earlier this season of Teen Mom 2, but she says, you know, her mom had called her again after that. She says that her mom called her again one time after that. It was from a blocked number, and she was hiding in a closet to call Kail, allegedly, because her husband doesn't like Kail. Oh, you guys, that level of dysfunction really does make you feel bad for her. And Kail also said that she knew her mom wasn't sober, and she told her mom on the phone, listen, call me again tomorrow, sober, and then we'll talk, and then I'll help you. And she has never heard from her mom since. Now, let's get into what she said on the podcast episode that she dropped yesterday. So she opens up the story about her relationship with her sister and where that stands today. Again, this is playing out on the current season of Teen Mom 2. We watched a couple of episodes earlier where she talks about how she wanted to cut her sister out of her life because her sister had the audacity to get bitten by a dog and not be able to travel to see her in like Dallas, was it Dallas or Houston, Texas at the time. Kail thought that was the greatest offense ever, so she cut her off, even though Kail herself was not even able to make it to Texas anyway, because Kail was going to see her sister and she was going to see her friend Sterling, but Kail couldn't make it to Texas anyway. So I don't know why she's still holding a grudge over her, over that with her sister, but I don't know. Anyway, on the podcast, she says that she's closed the door on having a relationship with her sister because she doesn't want her kids having any more inconsistent people in her life. She claims that she's always putting forth the effort to get in touch with her sister and to build a relationship there, and she's not getting any kind of reciprocity from her sister, and so that's why she's decided at this point, in Nene Leakes' voice, the door is closed. Another really interesting thing that Kail revealed in the episode, I was quite proud of her for her introspection here. It's nice to finally hear it in black and white because I feel like us as viewers, we've been picking up on this for years, but she's finally admitting it. She says, listen, I've tried, or thought about using my kids as pawns against their fathers before, but we've all got these kinds of court order extensions, for visitation and custody and stuff like that. It's all in writing. So I can no longer do those kinds of things. Like when I'm upset at the father, I can't just refuse to let him see the kid or anything like that. And so she really recommends that for other people. She says, listen, sometimes emotions run high in these kinds of relationships, in these kinds of situations, and people can do these sorts of things, withhold the children, etc., etc. So go ahead, get yourself a court order extension to protect yourself from these sorts of things. This is the reason why I haven't been able to play the pawn game with my kids lately. You know what I mean? And I thought that was really nice of her to share with her listeners. She says, you don't need a lawyer to do this. It only costs like $100 or $200 or something like that. And it'll save you a lot of headaches down the road. And speaking of not using a lawyer, this is Kail's New Year's resolution. She's like, listen, I've got like 6 attorneys and I've been paying them ever since I had my first child, going through all this custody issues, she had the divorce and businesses and real estate. So she's got a lot of stuff that she's been using lawyers for over the years. And she's like, I've spent so much money on attorney's fees that I no longer want to be using attorneys at this point. I am tired of it. I truly am. Anyway, you guys, that's a little recap of what Kail's been saying on her podcast. I gotta say, you guys, I like her a lot better on her podcast than on Teen Mom. Y'all know I can't stand Petty Betty on Teen Mom 2, but on this podcast, she is a lot better, especially in the last week's episode of the podcast. She gave a lot of really interesting perspective and advice about her co-parenting relationship with Jo and V, and about her parenting style with her kids that I quite enjoyed listening to. But anyway, that is a recap of what she's been saying on the podcast. As usual, I'm more excited. Oh, something I forgot to tell you guys. Oh my gosh, she is terrified of Teen Mom fans vandalizing her home and stuff. She was like, Halloween is coming up. I'm so scared that fans are going to come to my house, vandalize my car or vandalize my house, etc., etc., just being mischievous or whatever. So she has a lot of anxiety around the Halloween season, which makes me quite sad for her, you guys. But anyway, as usual, I'm more excited to hear what you have to say about everything. So please make sure to let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below, and we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.